Welcome to another episode of the Adultish Podcast. You can like, listen, comment, share, and subscribe to Adultish on most streaming platforms. You can also find Adultish on Twitter at AdultishP0DCAST. Welcome back, everyone, to a brand spanking new episode of the Adultish Podcast. As always, it's your host, Afiya, and I'm joined today by a new but old friend, Adam.
What's going on, everybody?
Adam, please, let's welcome Adam to the Adultish stage. Hello.
What's going on?
So, the reason why I say new but old friend is for the mere fact that we know each other from like years ago, but we never actually got to know each other. I'm saying it right?
That's exactly how it is. So like,
yes,
we were classmates in high school, but we were never like, let's go out and hang type of friends back in high school.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, so in high school, I was a part of this program called Gateway. Well, it was called Pulse, Gateway, whatever. But essentially what it was like a miniature school within the school. We were specifically designed to like go forward and have, I think it was biomed or biochem majors or whatever. I have to tell you, I was in that shit just because somebody I had a very ambitious 8th grade teacher who just signed me up for the shit. I didn't even know she enrolled me for it. I didn't even know. I wanted to just write shit, and here I was in this biochem class.
Right.
But anyway, it was 50 kids within the school, Brooklyn Tech. So we had all of our classes together for all 4 years, which means that we didn't get to integrate much with the rest of Gen Pop. That's what we used to call you. At least I used to call y'all Gen Pop.
Sounds like a prison.
What is high school?
You're absolutely right.
All right then. So
they forced me to go there.
I mean, let's keep it a buck, right? So because of that, we didn't really get to interact because I interacted with the same 50 or so people for the majority of my time at Brooklyn Tech. But we did have people that we knew that knew each other. So we knew each other through links in our groups.
Exactly, yeah.
But after that was after high school, we mostly stayed in touch. I want to say through social media, if anything.
You know what's even crazier about after high school?
What?
For 2 years, we went to the same college. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
See?
Look at that. As a matter of fact, no, I think I did know that, and I feel like I forgot. I feel like I knew it because I feel like I remember going oh, this person goes here.
Right.
And then forgetting it because college was also.
Mm-hmm. College was something else.
Did you ever see me cheer? Ever?
Once.
Oh, okay.
Remember it was you and Shakira?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Me, Shakira, and Natasha.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all high school people. Shout out.
I think I knew somebody else on the cheerleading squad. I don't know if you remember this girl called Gabrielle Rodriguez.
I feel, yes, she sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I met her at Brooklyn College.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I knew that you were there. It was and you weren't the only tech person there too. There were a couple other tech people that was a year before us that were at Brooklyn College. One of which that I had a crush on. It was a whole thing. Yeah. It's a whole thing. I think about it now and it breaks my heart. What could have been, but not. But yeah. And we still just never hung out, even though we went to high school together. We went to college together.
Mm-hmm.
Still.
Well, I never really used college as a hangout stuff. I went to school. I went to my classes, then I left and I had a job back then. So,
Oh, excuse me.
I mean, I'm not here bragging, but
I went to school and I had a job. I didn't have time to hang out like you delinquents. I had a job. I had responsibilities.
I didn't have responsibilities, but there was shit that I wanted to get done.
Ooh.
Right? And
with bass in his voice, he says it.
I didn't have, the luxuries or some of those other college kids where, their parents pay for everything.
That's true.
I was paying my own tuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have nice stuff too after college. I mean, after high school.
Yeah.
I wanted to drive. I wanted to have my own spot, which didn't happen for a while because paying rent in New York is very expensive.
Very expensive.
So, yeah, for the most part, I was, just going to school, trying to do my work, and then doing jobs here and there. Thinking back on the jobs that I had right out of high school, like, they were terrible jobs, but they paid. But I would never do it again.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, even then, we didn't hang out because you were working. I mean, I had a job in college too, but to be fair, I was also cheerleading. So I was working, cheerleading, and going to school. So I was doing 3 things. Yeah. But okay. We were so busy because we were doing. No. I joke and I kid.
I'm not gonna say that I was too busy to hang out.
No, that was your focus. That was your focus, and I totally get that.
I wasn't like really branching out socially,
and that's the other thing because when I knew you and what I knew of you,
I was very reserved
from high school. Was that you were a very quiet person because the person that we knew in common, when she told me that y'all were dating, I didn't even really know you, and I was just like,
isn't he quiet?
But he's just so quiet. Yeah. And we hung out, and you can't even remember the hangout, which is funny. But we hung out that one time, and what I remember the most about that hangout session was the fact, there were 2 things that I remembered. One, we were waiting forever on this one fucking person who was notoriously late. She was always late to things. And she made us so late for our bowling session that they kicked us out of the bowling alley because they couldn't hold our reservation. So that was the one thing I remember. And the second thing I remember was he was like, her boyfriend is just he's so quiet. Like, is he talking to anybody? Like, right? I mean, we peeped. You were super affectionate and cute with her or whatever. And we were like, oh, it's so cute. But he's so quiet. Like, should we say anything to him? Or it's like, is he going to talk? Like, and we would like ask her, like, does he talk?
So, my issue back then, I wouldn't call it an issue. It's just that, like, I grew up basically as like an only child, and I didn't really have much interactions with other kids. So like me around new people back then, I was like, I don't know if that person's really gonna vibe, so I'm just gonna stay away.
Got it.
Right. I don't want to like make an embarrassment of myself, open my mouth and say some stupid shit.
Got it.
Yeah. But looking back, I really wish that I got out of that mindset a lot sooner because I missed out on a lot of good friends back in the day.
Because, it was like, all right, he's kind of quiet. But then it just didn't make, that was the thing, it just didn't make no cotton picking sense because she was and it was like opposites must attract.
Opposites attract,
because
definitely.
She is a hyper, like, super energetic,
very
loud.
Yeah.
And not just loud like vocally, but she was just a loud, like when she walked into a room, she just had a presence.
Yep.
You could not notice her.
You wouldn't miss her at all.
Exactly. So it's just like, wow. How
did that happen?
How does that happen? How did that work? And then you just kiss it up to God and say, I guess it worked. It worked. Hey, if she happy, I'm happy. That's all I need to know. Right.
I mean, so me and her got along very well.
I'm sure.
Right. So, like, I would say behind closed doors, I was more vocal with her, right? So, like, we got along very well together, and we would talk all the time on the phone because she went to school far away. She went to school upstate, and I stayed in the city, so it wasn't like I was seeing her so often. It was had to be planned out, and plane tickets wasn't cheap.
Absolutely not.
Right. And I definitely wasn't taking no bus to Canada because it was borderline Canada where she went to school. So I was like, all right, bet. We're going to plan something for Valentine's Day. I'm going to come for Valentine's Day. And planned it out. We talked about it all the time. She was excited. I was excited. I couldn't wait to get up there. And we get up there, and for the majority of the weekend, it was a great time. We had so much fun. We went out. I had the whole, college experience because I never lived on campus.
All right.
So,
it was nice to feel that. Yeah.
Right. It's cool. I kind of wish I went away to school, but I don't dwell on the past.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a good time. We were vibing and everything. We were having fun. And then, she did some shit that rubbed me the wrong way.
All right.
Right. And me being me, how old was I back then? I was like 19.
I was just about to say, we were like 19 because
we
we
were
were
young.
fresh out of
Yeah,
high school.
We were young. And
this was all like freshman year.
it was because it was the semester right after we
Yeah,
graduated.
literally right after we graduated. Yeah, this is literally fresh out of school, fresh out of high school, getting into our whole like
trying to figure our lives out and everything. So she did something, and in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have acted the way I did, but I did, and I kind of handled the situation
poorly,
very poorly.
mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want anybody to do that to my daughter. What I deserve, so.
Right? But even after that, because I want to say like even after that, the whole situation and that ended, we still spoke to each other on social media either way, because it's still long after that happened. I mean, she clearly moved on, did her thing, I feel like there was this time in Facebook where, like, I don't know, there was like this awakening on Facebook where folks were just like, all right, this is post high school, like I'm probably hitting my second year of college, and I want to reconnect with as many people as I can because I'm getting ready for the real world, and I want to build my network. So we just start befriending, and
yeah, I think we all did that.
befriending like everyone who we remembered. And I feel like that's kind of like one of the ways that we seemingly reconnected. Yeah,
definitely.
And then it's just been a series of messages through Insta posts. But in those Insta posts, in those messages, we've come to learn that we have quite a bit in common.
We have
quite a bit in common. One of the things we're going to talk about that we have in common, we're gonna delve into is our history of relationships, right?
It's very, very intricate.
Is very, very similar. So, bringing up the fact that, well, actually, I'll let you ease into it so that way you set it up for me to talk about as much as you want to talk about.
All right, so I've dated quite a few people after high school. It started off as, me dating former Tech Knights. And then eventually as I, grew my network outside of work, outside of school. And I started like doing more things, around. I started meeting new people, and I would date them. And, they were good for the time they were good for, but it was never like anything long term. I think my longest relationship before I had children was like 2 years. And even in those 2 years, it was rocky for like the last couple months. But I try to end relationships on a good note.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to be, mad at people, have people hate me or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm still trying to figure out relationships, and I'm 35 now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting time to where I was like, man, listen, I need to figure this shit out soon. Otherwise, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life.
All right.
I don't want to be that guy. I'm trying to break these generational curses.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of use the men in my family because those guys are not the best examples. I don't know if you guys know, old school Caribbean guys, but they ain't really out here teaching their kids the very best things that they could be doing.
How to be the best type of man.
Right. So I kind of use, my father and my uncle as examples of what not to do. And so far, it's actually been working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I find myself in situations where I'd be like, I've seen this before. Where have I seen this before? And I think back, I'm like, yep, I definitely remember my uncle doing this shit. So I was like, you know what? Let me recoup my thoughts and sit down and actually have a conversation with my significant other about this instead of just going off the rails and just saying, oh, you're wrong and I'm right and my way or the highway. So I don't know. I just hope I find the right relationship soon because I'm getting tired of dating.
Oh my word! So are you dating?
I am dating.
Ooh, you're dating.
I am dating.
Look at you. Yeah. So the thing that we have in common is that we both are folks who had spouses. Right? You're dating, which is great. I'm still in this place of like, meh. But there's so much to unpack with uncoupling, right? That I feel like I can speak to with another person who's uncoupled as well. That I don't think you can get to with other folks because I feel like there's a certain
connection between people that's actually been through it.
Yeah, the people who have been married, and I wanted to bring up this conversation because a few months ago, she's a social media influencer. She's also like a writer, actress. We all know her from the shit white girls say, Jessica Lee. She posted online about like her divorce, basically like the remembrance of her divorce. And there was a woman who was, crying on TikTok, asking like, how do you get over it? How do you get over being divorced? And she made this really, really like beautiful, genuine response about the mourning and the pain that goes into that people are very much unaware of. When you're a person that has been through a marriage and kind of had to like let that go. And I reposted that, and in hearing your story, I was kind of like brought to this place of thinking about like, again, I feel like there's so much that happens that we try to speak to, that we try to get out, that folks who haven't been through it understand. Like, for instance, like how, or the reasons why we thought that it didn't work out. I mean, like that's it's fine, and we can relate to anybody with a breakup, but I feel like with a marriage it's a little bit,
it's different.
It's a little deeper.
Yeah.
There's a lot more psychology and shit that goes into it, I feel, than just the standard break up. I just want to get your thoughts as a person going through it.
So, like, I would talk about what's going on in my situation, my marriage, and like the first thing people would say to me is, so like when I told my parents that I was getting separated, right? It's like, well, why can't you just work it out? I was like, well, what do you think I was trying to been doing for the past 6, 7, 8 months? Right. I've been trying to work it out, and it's obviously not working. Like, when there's only one person trying to work it out, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
So it's difficult because I want the marriage to work, but like if the other person doesn't want it to work, it's never going to work. So there's no point in like pouring in so much energy into something that's obviously going to sink anyway.
Snaps.
So I'm just trying to figure out like
what it is.
Exactly. So like, I mean, me and her still talk, every now and then because
Yeah, there's stuff to
right.
figure out. Yeah.
So like I'm trying. Well, we're trying to be better
Mm-hmm.
about it, but in the same moment, I'm not trying to sit around and just wait for that to be fixed. While because I don't know how long it's going to take. It might take 6 months. It might take 3 years.
Right.
Right. So I told like we spoke about it. I was like, listen, I'm all for fixing our marriage and rekindling it and doing what needs to be done. But in the meantime, I'm going to be out, dating, going out and having a good time because it's what I need for my mental. Because there was a time when, I would just, sit in my house all day and just, sit on the couch and watch TV and be very unhealthy and not get out and exercise
Mm-hmm.
and just be in a funk and depressed all day and wondering why, my life is so terrible and how did I get here.
Mm.
So I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I'm going to go out. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to get back into exercising. And if you want to help, me work on this marriage, then I'm all here for it. But if you're not, I'm gonna keep moving.
Mm. I know for me, the idea of dating during the separation was something that my ex-husband wasn't entirely for. And only, I guess, mostly for him because he didn't like I don't believe he liked the idea of me being out with another man. I think that's just the long, short and sweet of it because one of the issues in our marriage had to deal with not necessarily control, but this maintenance of my access to men, if you will.
He didn't want you having all sorts of male friends and whatnot.
Yeah, it was it was like there were certain male friends that I couldn't have around because he figured that they didn't respect boundaries or that they wouldn't respect boundaries, to which he was basing it off of like shit that had happened
to him in the past.
But like he had been basing it on shit that had happened like in college, like when I had known those people either in high school or in college. And this is a man who I had known from college, way beyond college, because we were together for almost 10 years. Right. So he was basing like a lot of that on stuff. My thing is like, if I had been with a friend, and not even intimate, but like if I had been flirty or whatever with anybody in the past, and I am dating you and I'm focusing on you, and I tell you that this person is just a friend, that's all they are, then they're just a friend, that's all they are, right? The guys that he was upset about were guys that I hadn't even been with. Like these were men I hadn't even touched, hadn't nothing. Just one like we had a flirty moment like in high school. Another one I had a flirty moment in college, and the other one was just a friend who was just touchy. That was all. He was just a touchy friend. And he didn't like their proximity to me. He didn't like what he felt was like them crossing boundaries, which I understood from his point of view. And my thing was, if I am assuring you that these people are not going to cross these boundaries, if I'm telling you I've discussed this with these people and they have said to me, Afiya, I respect that you are with this gentleman, or I respect that, and this is when we were dating, right? Mm-hmm. I respect that you're dating this guy, and I'm not going to do this, this, and this because I'm out of respect for you and for him. Why can't you take that and accept that? It carried literally into our marriage. It literally carried into our marriage. And I had to like ban these people from talking to me. And then also be kind of like weary of the guys who were talking to me as well, to be like, hey, can't make too many funny jokes, type of stuff, because he had this, and his own friend told me this. One of his former friends told me that, like, he had this this thing to want to keep dudes away from me. Now, again, that's what a husband should do, right?
To an extent.
Yeah. Though, like it was kind of like he didn't trust that I wouldn't push men off, or that I wouldn't make it clear that I was married. To which the irony of that is that this man met up with his ex-girlfriend before we got married, and kissed his ex-girlfriend at a club when we were engaged.
This is why y'all were together, right?
when we were together, when we were engaged, before like a couple weeks or a couple months, might have been like 6 weeks before we got married in a club. And when I asked him, "Did you tell her that you were engaged?" He said no, and I said, "Oh," and I told him, "Don't you ever in your fucking life do that again." I let that shit go, and I still married him.
That's cheating. Yeah.
But 3 dudes he wanted me to not talk to, I didn't talk to them because he felt, and that projection, you did that wrong shit, so you expect me to do it.
I've realized that people that, are usually guilty of doing some things, they'll project it onto like, the significant other. Oh, So when me and my ex-wife, we started dating, me and my best friend were like going through some things. We weren't really talking to each other. So she had like a little health, it was a big health scare back during the beginning of COVID. And I reached out to her because I don't want to be that person that, lost out on a friend because I wasn't talking to them. Mm. So we reached out and we rekindled with each other, and, we talked it out and we fixed everything that we had going on. And then there was one night I told my wife, when we were married, and she was like, "Who you talking to?" I'm like, "Talking to Jennifer." She goes, "Oh, I thought you didn't talk to her." Mm-hmm. I was like, "Yeah, we had, our little issues, but we worked it out." So I had a lot of kiss up to with my friend. Mm-hmm. Did I say her name?
Yeah, it's fine.
Anyway, so, yeah, I talked to her a lot, like every day. Mm-hmm. And she got a little in her feelings. She goes, "Why are you always talking to her?" I was like, "Because this is my best friend.
Because that's my friend.
Like, this is what we do. Like, I'm trying to catch up on life with her. Like, we haven't spoken in a very long time, and we need to talk to each other." Mm. And it got to the point where she started questioning our relationship. She goes, "Have you guys ever fucked before?" I was like, "I'm literally telling you that I view this girl as my sister." She goes, "Oh, that's what all men say."
Yeah.
So it comes to find out that, she was projecting some old trauma that she went through onto me. And even to this day, I think that she still feels that there was something going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm quite certain. And that's why I feel like for me, it hits marriages a little bit deeper because, again, with a regular relationship, it's easier to just walk away from that.
Right. There wasn't any commitments.
There's no commitments there. You know what I mean? But when you're married, there's a lot more commitments. And then, like you said, you have folks giving you these really stupid questions like, "Well, why don't you guys try to work it out?" Because when you're in a regular relationship, there's no need to try to make it work unless you really want to make it work. But when you're in this marriage, there's already this commitment to make it work. There's this commitment that you're committing to make this work. And so it's so much harder because, like you said, there has to be a lot of work being put in. And if it's just one person putting in the work, or one person one person putting in the work, or one person making it difficult, because there could be one person putting in the work and then another person just making it really difficult. It can make, again, the whole concept of being in a relationship, just all the more that experience, all the more just taxing, just exhausting, difficult.
Very much so.
Like I said, with my ex, it was the projection. I mean, there was a projection of that, and I mean, to some degree, he and I, the reason why he had feelings the way he had feelings too is because when we were together, in like the 10 or so years we were together, we did break up. And in the time that we broke up, I was with other people. But I feel like his issue was that he was my first. Well, my first. Let's put it that. He was my first. Yeah. He was my first. I'm not on some Blanche Devereaux shit and saying like he's my first when he really wasn't. It was like 500 others who were my first. But he was my first he was my first real boyfriend, my first true love. He was he took my virginity, he was my first. So I felt like for him, when we broke up, the idea of other men invading that space that he invaded, that he knew was just supposed to be only his space,
It rubbed him off the wrong way.
I think it just, it rubbed him wrong. And so when we got back together, I know that it was a spot for him, because it definitely would come up in, even it would come up in ways in our relationship that, like, you know, is this the right time to address this? But okay, like, you know, where it's like, well, I'm, you know, just remember that, like, I'm your first, or just, you know, like, in this way of, I'm your, you know, you only want me, right? It's just me. You don't want any other dudes. And I'm like, no, it's just, so in hearing that language now, of course, having like a giant retrospect, it's like, there was a lot of that going on. And,
I feel like in a relationship, you shouldn't be worrying about what happened in the past.
There's a lot of that, yeah.
If that's all you're gonna think about, you're never gonna get anywhere in life.
And I feel like it's harder when you're in a marriage, because you are, again, committing to moving forward in a future with these people.
You're building something brand new.
Something brand new, and you're building it to last, and you're building it to move forward. And so when folks are continually harping on the past, in those relationships, it's very hard. I know for me, in my marriage, I was even given the advice to, like, have a baby, like, you know,
that isn't advice.
That was like, you know, well, you guys are having an issue, maybe you have a baby, maybe a baby will fix it.
Will not fix anything.
And, you know, you won't be told that in like a standard relationship.
No, you won't.
You wouldn't be given that advice like in a regular. You'd be like, girl, leave that man. Exactly. Or, you know, like,
you can do better, bro.
Like, you know, like, drop that bitch, like, whatever. Right. You know, you're not gonna be told to have a baby. You're not gonna be told to do all of that shit. But,
well, ain't no guys telling another guy to have a baby.
Well, there's that.
Right.
That's true.
That's a woman thing right there.
That is very much. I'm gonna.
You gotta agree with that one.
I have to agree with that one. That is very much a woman thing. I don't think I've heard of them, unless those dudes who want to trap women. But those are like the super abusive ones, like the super duper abusive ones, who are like, I need to keep her here, so I'm gonna
give her a baby.
So
she can't leave.
Yeah, just keep her like barefoot and pregnant. But not barefoot, like not pregnant to try to make things better. Like, I'm not going to give her a baby to make life better.
Trying to lock her up.
No. I'll give her a puppy. Maybe. Or like, I buy her a house.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it sucks. So I started this off by saying that my ex-husband wasn't keen on the dating while separating thing. And so we didn't pursue it. We thought about pursuing it. I brought it up, to be quite honest. And I'm not even going to lie. I selfishly brought it up because of the mere fact that I felt that I wanted to see other people, not because it was something that I longed to do. No. I wanted to see other people because my ex-husband made it a point that for him, he felt insecure in a way about the fact that because he was my first, that I would always wonder. Like, I would always wonder what if about other men. And yeah. And so like he treated me as though like he felt like if the stars aligned, the mood was right, and all of the men walking down the street were unclothed, you know, hard dicks, the entire street, that I would just like trip and fall on dicks the entire way. Like, he just made it seem as though
you're gonna try and fuck anything you can.
Yeah. That I would just drop trowel at the first erection that I saw, just to be like, I want to try this. Like, and I didn't understand where he got that from, because I never gave him the inclination that I wanted to have other person's dick in my mouth. Like, I never made him feel. I never just walked around going, I wonder what, 3B fucks like. I never did that. What I would do, Jason Momoa was hot as fuck. Like, woo.
So people that, like, you have
that I would never have
meet.
access
Right,
to, that I would
exactly.
never meet, that I would never have access to. Like, he had gotten jealous at one point that I was like, I had gotten fixated on Bill Compton from the freaking True Blood series, and it was like, why are you so I'm like, it's a fictional character and he's hot and the things that he does is romantic, like whatever. Like, you can never do the things that he did because you're not a vampire, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantasy. He was so jealous of that.
See, those are things that like I have no reason to get jealous over. Somebody crushing over like
Brad Pitt, like,
right.
get over it.
Like, I have no like you have no shot with Brad Pitt. Like, I'm not saying like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know
I know exactly what you're saying. Like, I would have to find my ass LA, past security guards, slip him a Bill Cosby. Like, I'd have to do too much to get to Brad Pitt. Right. Like, too much. So for him to get really antsy about things like that was really, really like annoying. And so because he kept harping on this, like, I know she wants to be with other men. I know she wants to be with other men. I know she wants to be with other men. My thing was like, well, you know what? Let me just go out there and be with these other men, because you're so consumed with the idea that I'm going to go out there and see that there's something so much better. Then you know what? When we separate, maybe I should go out there, because you're acting like there's something better than you out there. So maybe I should go out there and just be me and be a person. Because the other thing that I feel was happening in our relationship, which again, I don't think would be not too much of an issue to work through in a regular relationship, but something that you are forced to encounter in a marriage, is I was changing, I was growing as a person, right? This man met me when I was like 20. Like 19, 20,
we're
right?
still figuring out life.
I was still figuring out life, like what did life mean to me at that point.
I think I'm still figuring out life right now.
I'm still figuring out life, and I think I'm getting to a point where I'm getting a better understanding of myself. Back then, I didn't know who the fuck I was. I was like whatever my mom wanted me to be in whatever moment. I was whatever he wanted me to be in whatever moment. I was whatever cheerleading team needed me to be in whatever moment. Like, I was whatever anybody needed to be, and doing all the things to please all the people.
Right.
So imagine that I'm with this person since the age of like 20. He's the first, my first, my deflowerer, right? And we go through life together, and it's like I'm turning like 25, and I'm starting a career in publishing, and I'm starting to feel things out, and I'm, not living on my own just yet, but I have an understanding of what I want life to be like when I do live on my own, and I'm with you. And so I have an understanding of what I want life to be like with another person. I'm developing a sense of self that he is not accustomed to, because he's accustomed to me at 20. He knows me at 20, and he's seen me in whatever capacity he needed me to be for him. He's not seeing me as just this individual who's like growing up in a way. And so I also wanted to take that time to kind of come into my own as well, and just say, this is me. Because there were days, and he said this to me, he said that he called me a bitch. He was like, you are being a bitch, because there were days I would put my foot down on things that typically I used to blow off before, that now I'm like, no, now I'm going to get in your ass about this, because now I have strong convictions about this, and I'm going to talk to you about it, because there's no fucking way that we're going to continue living like this.
So he basically called you out your name for taking accountability for things.
Right. For forcing him to kind of like take account, So it's I was like, you know what, let me step out and be me and date other people. But the reason why we didn't move forward with that agreement is because we were living together in the same house, and and the whole issue was, well, this is my house, and it, like, who's bringing who to whose place? Because no, right? Like, are you gonna move out when we separate? Like, are you gonna move out? Because who's staying where. And his whole thing was like, I'm not moving out. And I was like, okay, great, cool, fine. You're not moving out. I'll just move into a different apartment in the building, in the house, whatever. But I was like, all right. All I'm saying though is that we need to have some kind of system. If are just saying to you right now, you better be okay if you see some Negro roll up in here. I don't want to hear it.
Exactly. I don't want to see a scene happening.
Yeah, like if we're gonna agree, if you're gonna say to me that you're not gonna move out because it's my family's house and you didn't want to move out, if you don't want to move out my family's house, that's fine, absolutely fine. I was like, one, you're gonna have to pay rent because that's non-negotiable, and two, he was like, well, if I pay rent, I'm gonna do whatever I want, and I was like, okay, cool. If you want to bring Becky and Kimberly and Barbara and whoever in here, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly, your spot.
Do you? But all I know is when I bring Ken and Doug and Paul, I don't want that. Exactly. Keep that same energy. I don't want no shits. I don't want the shits. So he could not get on board with that.
So he wanted it all his way, basically.
He couldn't get on board with that. So that's why that didn't happen for me. How was that working out for you?
So during the marriage, we talked about, bringing a third into the marriage. So
a unicorn?
Yeah.
Okay.
It never came to fruition, but like she would always bring it up, and then she would always show me the girl. I'm like, oh man, she's cute. Let's get to know her and everything. And then every time without fail that it was time to meet this person,
mm-hmm.
Get to know them, she'd always start a fight.
Always
start a fight. So after like the third try, I was like, you know what? I don't want to try this anymore.
Okay.
So anyway, after the marriage failed,
mm-hmm.
and I want to say I went about 4 months, and I was like, I don't need to be dealing with any women right now. I just want to, work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even in a space to date, like mentally.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it. So one of, I hate to say this word, but one of my New Year's resolutions
mm-hmm.
was to live a happier life. So I sat down with her,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, look, I'm not against, trying to fix things between us, but for the time being, while we're separated, I'm gonna date. I'm gonna date, and I'm gonna meet new people, and I'm gonna try and have a good time. And I told her, I said, I'm not against you doing the same if you want to. And she seemed a little hesitant at first,
mm-hmm.
but after the conversation, she was like, "Oh, all right, I can see your point. We're not together, basically, so you can do whatever you want."
All right.
Right.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, he wasn't for it. I know for him, it was kind of like, it was also this feeling of like, well, if we're going to be dating other people, then we're basically no longer married. But essentially for you, your marriage dynamic was slightly different, so that wouldn't have necessarily been too big of an issue.
Right.
So how are things? How are you feeling about things now?
So I'm still feeling some type of way about, this is my first marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I got married, I thought this was going to be like my forever person.
Yeah.
And, we went and we bought a house together, and, we moved out of state, and now we're in this place, neither one of us are from Texas. So
right.
we're literally down there building a whole new life down there. And I thought this was going to be my forever. And then lo and behold, we hit this bump.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to figure it out all over again. But I don't know. Like, I don't want to have to go through this again.
And that's okay. So as you brought that up, I was thinking of this. Knowing what you know now, what is some advice that you're taking with you?
So from my relationship,
Mm.
because everybody's different.
Yes.
My downfall or issue, what I should have done better, we didn't date for too long before we got engaged and got married. So we started dating in 2019. And by 2020, we were married.
Okay.
So I didn't find out everything about her till after we were married. And, like, you know, she got married and a whole different side of her came out. I'm like, well, where the hell was this when I was courting you? Like,
right.
Had I known this, you know, I might have taken my time or not even got married at all.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice would be to get to know the person as much as you can before you make that big commitment, because marriage is a huge commitment, and it's expensive. You know how much a wedding costs these days?
Oh my goodness gracious! That's why I DIY'd everything. I could not. I was like, no. What can I do, and what can I make so I don't have to pay for it?
I wish I was that handy.
Yeah. For me, I feel like some of the takeaways that I had, moving forward from, my marriage is a lot around growth. Like it's a lot of reflection, a lot of self-reflection around just like being full, being who you are, or just like kind of being secure in yourself. I know for me, one of my downfalls was the fact that I was people pleasing. I was doing way too much people pleasing.
Right.
And
so you were basically pouring into everybody else instead of yourself.
Yes, I was pouring into too much. And then once I finally decided that I was going to set boundaries, and make things, decide for myself, like who I wanted to be around or the way I wanted to live, it started to kind of like create issues. And I feel like that was because I spent too much time trying to be the person that he wanted me to be, as opposed to showing him the person that I wanted to be and becoming the person that I wanted to be in that relationship. Yeah. And continuing that and kind of like having a partner that would nurture the person that I wanted to be versus like nurturing the person that they wanted me to be, So I feel like moving forward in relationships, I want to do that. And I know that there's work to be done, because in relationships since my marriage, I've had some moments, some triumphs, and then I've definitely had moments of relapse where like I 1000% folded and try to just be a super, like super accommodating, super people pleasing, and not really offering up myself to these individuals and saying like, this is me, like it or not, make a determination and go. And instead I'm being very much like, I'm whatever you need me to be to keep you around, so that way you know that like I'm here for you.
You'll never be happy like that.
Never be happy like that. So definitely trying my best to kind of like continue forward with that mindset, with that concept of living, with that lifestyle. And it's hard because there's a lot of familial and generational stuff to unpack that like that puts a lot, that creates those habits and those ideas and all of that stuff, which is, like a whole other episode. But it's hard, but that's definitely something that like I take with me, and 1000% communication.
Very much.
I think we were good communicators. We were excellent. We were actually pretty good communicators, but I feel like, again, because I was doing a lot of people pleasing, I really wasn't communicating my needs.
So our communication, it was decent, but it wasn't the best. But there'd be times where she would have an issue, and she like make like some subliminal hints about what she's mad at, and then when I ask her like, hey, tell me what's wrong. Like I don't want to have to decode it right now. Just flat out tell me.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, if you can't figure it out, then there's no point in talking to you about it. I was like, how am I supposed to figure anything if you're not going to tell me exactly what it is? Like,
yeah.
This isn't a game. Like I'm really sitting here trying to make you feel safe in this marriage and whatnot, and you're just here telling me, oh, you have to figure it out yourself.
We'll figure it out. If you don't know,
exactly.
If you can't figure it out by now, I'm not like that. I wasn't like that. But I would pout. I wouldn't do like the whole figure it out thing. I was very much more of like a suffer in silence. Like I would just eat it and just keep going about my business. But that's something that I also have to, like take into the next relationship. Like communicate. I am mad. You said this and it pissed me off.
Say exactly what's on your mind.
Just like that. Exactly. But yes.
But also try not to make it into like don't come like yelling at somebody.
Absolutely.
Right. Speak your point calmly.
Though there's some guys who get off on that.
With the yelling?
Mm-hmm.
Or being yelled at? I'm pretty sure there's guys that get off on being yelled at also.
Yeah. I'm quite sure. I feel like there was a person that I spoke to that I told him that like I was wilding out on my ex once. And like I stabbed the wall to like prove a point.
I thought you was gonna say that you stabbed him.
No, I should have. No, but I'm bummed. Absolutely not. I don't believe in violence to the degree. I stabbed like the molding in the apartment, in the kitchen. And I was justifiably unreasonable in doing that. But I wanted to make a point. Mm-hmm. And in me saying this to someone, they were like, oh, yeah, man, that's like the sexiest thing that you told me that you've done. And I'm like,
what?
Do you like these kinds of like chaotic women?
Those are those toxic relationships that people just absolutely love to be in.
Flag on the plane. And I didn't, again, throwing flags on the plane, not even paying attention to it. But yes. Divorce sucks.
It does.
It really does. Saying all of that just to say divorce sucks. And for those of you out there who think that it's just the easiest thing to do, or not even the easiest thing to do, that you think that it's an option and it's a quick and easy option. It's not. I know of people right now who are contemplating divorce from their spouses. And it's vastly different. The advice that I would give a person who was getting a divorce is not the same advice that I would give somebody who was in a relationship, because there can be so much more invested in a marriage, right?
Yeah,
kids, property,
businesses.
Yeah, there's the financial aspect, and then again there's the aspect of the commitment to a future, right? Typically when you're dating somebody, when you're in a relationship with a person, the end game is to be in a marriage where you're committing with them for life. So you have the option while in a relationship to end that relationship if you feel that person is not going to be someone that you can commit to long term. But you find that once you are in a marriage, you have already, I guess, quote unquote, done that vetting process and all that other stuff. And
exactly, the whole marriage and wedding was me committing to this person till death do us part.
And and in some marriages, you find that people have already poured so much into it. Yeah, there is going to be this push, this initial push to say, did you guys work on it? Did you try it out? Did you try out as much as you can? And the reason is that because it's not easy out here in these streets. Do we not remember how hard it was to get to that point?
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I said, I'm being told there's people out here who I know who are okay, well, fuck this nigga. I'm getting literally, I know a couple people, right? A couple people getting couple people. It's crazy to me. The more I'm thinking about it, the more people are popping up into my head right now. But I know a few people who are getting divorces, and a couple of them are fuck this nigga. I'm gonna be out here in these streets, pussy popping. I'm listen, Linda. Wait. Do you remember how long you had to be in these streets, pussy popping? Do you remember how tiring? Like, listen, you're not the same age. Like, you're not in your 20s. You're not 21 anymore. You're not 22 anymore. It's not cute. You got fucking kids now. Like, that shit ain't popping. Like, I'm not trying to be a, what's his name? My brother who just passed, Mr. Kevin Samuels. Okay. I'm not trying to Kevin Samuels y'all, but like, let's keep a buck. Like, you are in your 30s or 40s. You are out here with children.
Exactly.
It is not the same game. It is not the same playing field.
That's when you hit him with the, what man is going to want you?
You know, and it's like, yes, there are good men out here who will absolutely see you, think you're a dime, and want to raise you and your 15 kids from your previous marriage. Absolutely, there are men out there. They are not a dime a dozen, though.
No.
They are like diamonds in the rough from Aladdin. Like, they are like that. Like, Jafar gotta send Iago out here and this bitch to find this nigga. Like, that's how their specs, like, they're not easily accessible. So to feel like I'm just gonna get divorced because there's so many men out there is a no for me. And then also too, think about the time that you've invested into this relationship already.
Just to throw it all away.
And to start all over with someone new. I know that sounds very, I don't know, boomerish of me. Like, I really don't give a shit.
Not though, because starting a whole relationship is a lot of work.
It's the same thing like starting a whole new career. Like, that whole daunting, overwhelming thing. Like, starting over from a new place, moving from one state to another, moving from one apartment to another. Like, it's like starting over with anything is always that daunting, overwhelming feeling because you're starting from scratch. It's the same thing. So I look to these people who are getting these divorces and going like, did you do the absolute most that you did? And for some of them, they're like, yeah, I did. And then I'm like, all right, well, if you did and you did, by all means, don't stay where you're not happy. But then I look at some of them and I'm like, but did you really do the best that you can? Because you being out with your friends, clubbing and shit, and saying, oh, I don't want to go to couples therapy, it doesn't sound like you're trying. No, it doesn't sound like you're trying at all. It sounds like you made up your mind that you're done. You know what I mean? You out here checking out and like posting shit online of you looking like you're single as fuck doesn't sound like you're trying to do anything at all.
It sounds like you're fishing for something new.
So I'm like, you know, when they say like, oh yeah, I tried, but I'm over it. Like, that's when I'm like, but did you even try?
Yeah.
You know? And for those people, I'm like,
what is your definition
of trying? Yeah. You know? And for some of those people, I'm going to say girls, but it's the majority of them girls. But for the people, those girls, like, I'm like, did you go to therapy? Did you sit down? Oh, well, you know what? Like, we went to a session and, it's not just one, it's not just two. You know, go to the counseling and sometimes keep your family out your fucking marriage sometimes too.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they tend to give terrible advice.
Hello. Sometimes they come in there and they're with good intentions, but not all that great. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're the reason why the marriage is fucking up to begin with. And then they want to come in there and sprinkle a little bit more shit on it. So sometimes you gotta keep your family out and go to that counseling and try it out and sit down. Like me and my ex, like we went in that shit for months. We were in that shit, you know. But he started wilding out. Like he started wilding. Like, well, not even with me. Like he was saying some shit in therapy, which I won't even say he was justified in saying. He was justified in saying some of the things that he said, which was like about me being insecure and not fully sure of myself. And he was right in that. Like, I wasn't who I was. I was just people pleasing, all that stuff like that. But he was saying it in a very negative way and not taking any kind of accountability for the fact that he wasn't stepping up and displaying any signs of growth as an individual, and that he did not want to change the way that he had previously known life to have been, and he didn't want to adjust to being not just one person, or not being him, but being someone's husband. And it was always like me, like I was always the problem.
So marriage is all about compromise. I wouldn't say
Hello.
compromise, but it's about adapting to your partner and doing the best for both of y'all, not just like one person. And if one person is all about themselves, it's gonna fail.
It's gonna fail, and I feel like we had two different ideas of what marriage was going to be, and this is another thing that I'm going to carry into my next relationship, be it a marriage or just a relationship. It's just a clear understanding of what the relationship is. And that's for any fucking relationship, because you know how many situationships I find myself tumbling into just because, and I'm like, I need to get it. I need to just get in the habit of being like, what the fuck is this?
What are we doing?
And are we clear about
On
this?
the boundaries and the rules and what we're doing.
And I've done this with several people. There's just a couple times, again, I slip up. It's like, ooh, slipped on the dick, forgot my senses. Like that kind of moment. But like, or people who just bring the toxic out of you, so like you have those moments, but that's definitely something moving forward, like being kind of like not even sure of yourself, but like sure of the things that you want for yourself. Definitely communicating that out, and like just I promise you, you have to be clear about the kind of relationship that you're going into, because I swear I think he thought we were going to do the whole traditional West Indian type relationship where
the woman takes care of the man and does everything that she can for him while he works and pay bills and whatnot.
Because I would be coming home at 5:00 in the evening. Mind you, he used to get off at work at 2:00. Granted, he used to start his day like at 4 or 5 in the morning. So get it. He'd come home around like 2:00, 1:00 in the afternoon, 2:00. But then he would be home from 2 to like 4, doing whatever he's doing. I ain't gonna blast your shit out there, but doing the shit he was doing during them times and passing out and shit. And then I'm coming home from work. I'm seeing you pass out on the couch and shit. And I'm like, it's 5:00.
Where's the food?
Where's the food? Yeah. Did you like take the chicken out of the fucking freezer? Like, what's going on? And then I have to cook.
You do all this after a long day of work.
Listen, and then after I cook, you want me to have sex with you on top of all of that? Like, bro. No, I literally, I looked at him like this ain't gonna be our, this is not it. This is not it. No.
So I like to say that being married has made me a better cook. Cause there's days where, I'm off and she's working. Mm-hmm. And there's no way I expect her to come home after work and cook food. So I'm going to cook the food.
You see, these weren't things that we discussed. These were things that I assumed, right? I assumed that as my partner, because you know that I'm coming home later than you, that you would cook. And these were things that we talked about when we were dating. Like, okay, well, you better have, dinner home for me when I come home from work, blah, 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 blah. But his version of that would be buying, like ordering out or buying food or like taking me out to dinner. And I'm like, okay, that's nice occasionally,
once in a while,
but
not every night.
Exactly. And as a married couple, and you want to think about children and all that other shit like that, like we have to start thinking in terms of being a twosome. Like, this is some shit that you do as a bachelor, not some shit that you do as a couple. And again, I don't think he was in that mindset. He wasn't able to adjust. So that was the idea for him. Like, if I bring home some dinner, then you should be good. And I'm like, well, I don't need you to bring home dinner every night. But his resolve wasn't, let me learn how to cook. It was like, well, if you want to cook, then you good, because I ate earlier in the day. And it's like, nigga, that's not how we do things here. And still wanted me to put out afterwards.
Like, why would I want to put out for you?
And then get mad at me because I would say, no, I want to sleep. I'll holler at you like at 1:00 in the morning. And then be mad because he's like, no, I got to wake up to go to work at 4. That's not my fucking problem.
Another flag on the play right there.
That ain't my fucking problem. Oh, well. Go back to sleep and wake up 2 hours later and go back to work. That's not my business.
Exactly.
Did you get your nut? Yes. Did I get mine? Yes. So
be happy.
Hello? You going into work. They're not giving you vagina. I am. They're just giving you a paycheck. Which one you want more? All right. Answered. Done. Go about your business. But no, he used to be mad about that. And again, it sucks.
It does.
But those are the things, like just communicating the type of relationship that you're in, the communication, as you said, the compromising, setting those boundaries, and 1000% being yourself and being your 100. I feel like my biggest pitfall is not being my 100% or just being myself, just being me going into a relationship. Like I just need to start being me.
You definitely need some self-care in a relationship.
You know,
because if you're not happy, you're not gonna the relationship ain't gonna work if y'all not happy.
No,
even if you're not happy with yourself, it's not gonna work.
Yes, if you're not happy with yourself, it ain't gonna work, and that's something to do, right? Like, and if you're in a relationship and you're unsure about yourself while you're in that relationship, that is absolutely how, like RuPaul says, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else if you don't love yourself? Can I get an amen? Amen. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Adultish Podcast. I would ask Adam to drop his socials, but he's an extremely private person. So he's not going to do that. However, you guys can find me on the social media. You can find me on Instagram at ALJAO214. You can also find me on the Twitter at La Jolie Poeta. That's LAJOLIE Poeta. You can also find me on Clubhouse, but I'm not really on there all too much at ALJ August. But you can find us, the Adultish Podcast, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Adultish P0DCAST. Please send us emails because we love them and I love to read them at Afiya@digidisnet.com. That's Afiya at DIGIDISNET.com. I am amazed at myself for remembering all of those things tonight after having a drink and a smoke. That is ridiculous. I am on one right now and I'm amazed. And I'm going to run out and say, I'm amazing. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you, Adam. You did not fumble like you thought you would. This is amazing.
Right? I was overthinking this.
You were overthinking. I told you. I told you. It's just going to be just a conversation with the peeps.
Right.
And then you're going to hear yourself in a few days when this episode drops. So until then, bye.
Later.